Coach, not many coaches have had the opportunity to coach at two great places like Notre Dame and Ohio State, but you have, and now we get to see them play today. From an Ohio State perspective, what are some of the most important things they have to do to win the game?
Notre Dame's going to roll out a first-time starting quarterback. Ohio State last year lost 2 games. In both those games, they gave up over 250 yards rushing. They have to stop the run. Notre Dame's going to come in 110,000 plus in that Ohio Stadium. They're going to take the ball out of that quarterback's hand, at least for the first part of that game. They're going to try to run the ball. They have a good offensive line, good backs, very talented team. If Ohio State has to clean up the run defense, it could be a long day. Okay, Jerry, let's take a look. This is an example of Ohio State getting out physical a little bit. And remember, that's going to happen. You're facing the Wolverines here. You're going to face Notre Dame. At times, mano-a-mano, you lose. But the number one reason when you see teams run the ball is they get out physical. So take a look here. You can just see the offensive line of the Wolverines does an excellent job. They're displacing the downs, which means number 6 and number 86 are getting moved out of their gaps. That's a very physical run by the Wolverines. All right, Jerry, continuing the why of when a team struggles stopping the run. Number one is the getting out physical, not necessarily in order, but the other one is missed tackles.
Right.
And here you can see Ohio State is very good in the gap control. They're not getting out physical.
Right.
You just miss a tackle. I used to say, and the stats show it, you keep it to under 10 single-digit missed tackles, you usually are playing great defense, you win the game. All right, now we're going to get a little deeper into the woods here and why sometimes you struggle stopping the run. And it all has to do with gap control, which we'll talk about here in a minute, but it gets so more complicated when you have pullers. The Wolverines run a counter play right here. Right. And as the Wolverines add people to a side, Ohio State has to match them. You see the guard pull and the tight end pull.
Right.
The defensive end, number 11 for Ohio State, has a choice. He can either box it or spill it. Box it means you turn it back inside. Right. Spill it is what he's doing here. He's bouncing it to the outside. The issue is Ohio State doesn't have anybody he's bouncing it to. And when you spill it, you have to spill it to someone.
Okay, first defensive meeting of the fall. You've got a bunch of young players, and you're going to introduce your defense. And one of the ways you're going to do that is you're going to define every gap to the defensive players.
Okay, Jerry, this is a 4-3 defense played by the Buckeyes here. You got both defensive ends are in the C gap. Okay. You got the left defensive tackle here is in the A gap. Right. The other defensive tackle is in the B gap. Linebackers fit off the down players. So this left backer, number 30, has the B gap. Right. The right backer's got to get over the top quickly and downhill to the A gap.
Sure.
So now you're controlled. The D gap areas are controlled by the secondary players usually. Okay? But let's go back to the responsibility. It's not just your gap. Athletes like what? Space. So don't give them space. I'm going to pause it here in a second. We're going to recheck the gaps right now. Boom.
Wow.
Okay, the left defensive end is too wide. He's expanded the B gap, which is what running backs want, space. Right. The G, or the deep nose guard, was responsible for the A gap. He is now out of the A gap. And this puts this linebacker in a very tough bind. You put yourself there. That's a mismatch. Okay, in the perfect world to stop or play great run defense, this is exactly where any of the players need to be. Number 30 needs to be in the B gap. Right. He needs to be on the left shoulder of the offensive lineman.
Got it.
The nose guard here needs to be where? In his A gap. Right. A gap's now gone, and the defensive end just squeezes a little bit. Once again, running backs like space. Give them no space. Condense the defense.
Coach, it's been a while. Let's go to the board.
All right, this is the exact formation that you saw the Wolverines run in the video a minute ago, and Ohio State was lined up in a 4-3 defense. How do you stop the run? Number one, don't get overpowered. Ohio State rarely gets overpowered. However, gap control, as you can see right here, is the second most common reason when you see defenses give up big plays or in the run game. At the end of the day, the defense is set up that the G, or the defensive tackle, has the A gap. Right. The defensive end has the C gap.
Right.
And the linebacker has the B gap. Got it. Secondary players take care of the D gap. Backside, Will has the A gap. 3 technique has a B gap and C gap. So if everybody maintains their gap, but I want to take it a little bit further. You need to condense a gap. Why? Because athletes want space. Right. They want to run the ball in space. The defensive job is to condense the space and make it easy, make the linebacker's job easier. How do you do that? Hold your gap integrity, squeeze the gaps, and there's nowhere to run. The defensive end does not condense the B gap. Right. He gets knocked out, displaced. The offensive tackle for the Wolverines did a heck of a job. The center actually reaches and takes over the defensive tackle. Now there is no longer an A-gap player. So the end's wide, the tackle's reached, there's no A-gap player, and the linebacker now is face-to-face with a 310, 20-pound guard, and it's too much space. And you can see he tries to go over the top of it. That creates a seam for the Wolverine tailback, and he takes it to the house.